Why does Trump fear BRICS? Is this really the dollar versus a multipolar world? Here is something that will shock you about Trump's latest threats against BRICS nations. While everyone thinks his 100% tariff warnings are just typical Trump bluster, there is actually a deeper fear driving his actions. A fear that could reshape the entire global economy. Most people believe Trump's aggressive stance shows American strength. But what if his threats are actually signs of vulnerability? What if his tariffs aren't stopping BRICS, but actually pushing more countries toward them? In this video, we will uncover why Trump sees BRICS as an existential threat. You will discover how his aggressive tactics are pushing even America's closest allies toward independence. And you will see why the global financial system might be heading for its biggest shakeup in decades. The answers might surprise you. Let's dive into the real story behind Trump's BRICS obsession. Trump's words reveal everything about his deepest fear. The dollar is king. We are going to keep it that way, he declared recently. But here is the kicker. He also said losing the dollar's dominance would be like losing a major world war. Think about that for a second. A major world war. Trump has threatened BRICS nations with 10% additional tariffs, claiming they are trying to destroy the dollar. He's even escalated to threatening 100% tariffs on countries that play games with the dollar. The August the 1st, 2025 deadline for these tariffs is final, with no extensions, according to his Truth Social posts. But here is where it gets interesting. Despite these aggressive threats, Trump also claimed BRICS largely broke up and is not a serious threat. Wait, what? If it's not serious, why the nuclear level threats? The contradiction tells us everything about what's really happening. Let's look at what BRICS actually represents today. Originally just Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, BRICS has exploded to include Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, and Indonesia. 9 partner countries are already lined up, with dozens more wanting to join. The numbers are staggering. BRICS now represents 45% of the global population and over 35% of world GDP. Some sources put it at 50% of population and 40% of GDP. Western outlets are intentionally pushing a false narrative about BRICS creating a common currency to replace the dollar. This divisive story is designed to fuel tensions between BRICS members, particularly India and China. What is the truth? BRICS leaders have definitively shut down these rumors. Putin himself refuted them, saying he doesn't want to repeat the mistake of the euro. Why? Because a common currency would eliminate monetary sovereignty for each country. And here is another myth Western media pushes, that China wants the yuan to replace the dollar as the global reserve currency. China actually doesn't want this. Making the yuan a global reserve currency would transform an exorbitant privilege into an exorbitant burden for China. It would force China to fully open its capital markets, allow currency convertibility, and risk inflation and asset bubbles. China would lose control of its domestic economic levers. China's strategy is much smarter. Use yuan where it benefits China. Avoid where it doesn't. We have got this scenario covered in a video that I'd love for you to check out. You can click up here or find the link in the description. Meanwhile, could you do me a quick favor? If you are enjoying this, just hit that like button and leave a hi or an emoji in the comments. It really helps us out. It's super easy and makes a big difference. And if you want to show more support, all the links are down in the description. So, if they are not creating a rival currency, what are they actually doing? This is where it gets fascinating. BRICS isn't trying to replace the dollar overnight. They are dismantling the system the dollar controls, one piece at a time. India and Russia now settle energy trade in rupees. China and Brazil trade in yuan. Saudi Arabia sells oil to China in renminbi. ASEAN countries launched local currency frameworks. The goal isn't replacing the dollar, it's ending the need of it. China's cross-border interbank payment system, CIPS, now operates in 139 countries. That's an alternative to the US-controlled SWIFT system. The mBridge platform allows countries to settle trade in digital currencies directly, instantly, without SWIFT. In 2022 trials, it processed $22 million in cross-border payments. It's designed for a world where the dollar is optional, not king. Here is where Trump's strategy gets really interesting and potentially disastrous. His tariff threats aren't just hitting BRICS nations, they are alienating America's closest ally. Japan's prime minister called Trump's actions deeply regrettable. A Japanese policy chief called being notified by nothing more than a single letter as extremely disrespectful. Even the US Secretary of State had to skip planned stops in Tokyo and Seoul due to fresh tensions. Brazil's President Lula directly rebuffed Trump's threats, stating, "The world has changed. We don't want an emperor." But here is the shocking part. A recent Pew poll revealed that significant majorities in Canada and Mexico view the United States as the greatest threat facing their country. Even in Japan, nearly 20% of respondents identify the United States as the primary threat they perceive. Think about that. America's closest allies are starting to see America as their biggest threat. Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger once said, "It is dangerous to be an enemy of the United States. It is fatal to be a friend of the United States." That quote is eerily relevant today. Trump's unpredictable transactional approach is pushing allies toward greater independence. France's President Macron is championing strategic autonomy for Europe, urging the continent to de-risk from dependencies on both the United States and China. Experts know that credibility and trust are much more easily destroyed than built, never mind rebuilt. Trump's style, often described as rule of Trump rather than rule of law, creates an environment where even allies can't predict American behavior. This unpredictability is accelerating the exact multipolar shift Trump claims to oppose. India's position reveals the complexity of this new world order. As both a US trade partner and BRICS founding member, India faces an impossible choice. Trump has stated India will certainly have to pay 10% additional tariffs because of BRICS membership. But India has mastered the art of non-alignment. They have engaged in local currency trade with Russia and China, but explicitly stated they are pursuing de-risking, not de-dollarization. India has notably resisted using the yuan for Russian oil imports, showing wariness of Chinese dominance within BRICS. This balancing act represents what many countries are trying to do: diversify without choosing sides. Here is what this all means for the future. America's dominance isn't growing, it's shrinking. The US contribution to global GDP is declining, while countries like India and China are rising as the fastest growing large economies. The IMF predicts that by 2028, BRICS Plus will account for nearly 38% of global GDP compared to just 28% for the G7. This isn't about ideology, it's about economic reality. The dollar still dominates with 58% of global forex reserves and 88% of forex trades. But these numbers are slipping. In 2001, the dollar made up 71% of reserves. Every year, a little more trade settles in other currencies. The dollar won't have a grand funeral. Instead, it will fade in relevance, especially in the global south, losing its monopoly, not its existence. Here is the irony Trump doesn't see. His aggressive approach is providing more impetus for BRICS members to find common cause. His threats are making the case for alternatives stronger, not weaker. Brazil's foreign policy advisor suggested Trump's threats reinforce the willingness of BRICS members to chart our path and seek greater independence. Even China, facing 150% tariffs, responded with measured language about trade wars having no winners, rather than escalating rhetoric. The chicken out factor that political observers note about Trump's negotiating style is well known internationally. Countries are learning that firm, unified responses can neutralize his bullying tactics. So, why does Trump fear BRICS? Because he understands that America's unipolar movement is ending. The rise of the global south and the desire for a multipolar world are unstoppable forces. His tariff threats reveal not strength, but anxiety about losing the exorbitant privilege of dollar dominance. The real question isn't whether the global order will change, it's whether Trump's confrontational approach will accelerate or complicate this inevitable transformation. The world isn't waiting for America's permission to build alternatives. It's already happening, one bilateral trade agreement at a time. What do you think? Is Trump's strategy protecting American interests or accelerating the very shift he is trying to prevent? As always, thanks for watching.